Today in the France 24 debate, we're looking at the price to pay for the changes we're experiencing. And joining us from Stanford, California, she was a delegate at COP26, Henna Hundal, researcher on the impact of climate change at Stanford School of Medicine. I understand you're packing your bags to head towards the Egyptian resort of Sharm el-Sheikh.
Hello, thank you so much for having me, and that's correct. I'll be headed over to Sharm el-Sheikh very soon, but I'm involved in conversations remotely, and I think there's so much to discuss with this current round of negotiations, and I'm looking forward to seeing how everything pans out.
Thanks so much for being with us. Thanks as well from Miami to Mektelawit Mesei, Ethiopian doctoral researcher at Florida International University. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
We're in the company of Nicolas Mélan, Senior Advisor at EV Volumes, EV standing for
Electric Vehicle. Good
Electric
evening.
Vehicles.
Good evening, François.
Thanks for being with us again. And covering that COP27 UN summit for us is France 24 Environment Editor, Valerie de Kemp. How are things, Valerie?
Hi, François. Very good. Been covering the conference all day and for another 2 days, hoping to head back to my hotel pretty soon.
All right. Not yet. The France 24 debate where you can join the conversation, and you have on Facebook and Twitter, hashtag F24debate.
Humanity has a choice: cooperate or perish. It is either a climate solidarity pact or a collective suicide pact.
Or a collective suicide pact. Before we delve into the lofty issues at hand, if you had been sleeping in a cave for 20 years and you heard this pronouncement, you would be shocked. But we've had a lot of COP summits since, and those who cover it regularly. What do you do when you're the United Nations Secretary General? How do you message it? Are those the right words to use?
Well, I'd rather, I've heard that. Look, we've been doing wrong for the last 25 years, but now we have a plan. We understood that when we started the COP back in 1995, that's also when China in 2001 joined the World Trade Organization. And what happened is that we delocalized 20% of all the plants globally, from rich countries to poor countries, from decarbonized electricity to coal. And this is why actually since we started the COP, the CO2 emission never increased that fast. Because what we do is we just produce things made of coal, made of China.
And things that are outsourced. So that's the problem there. Let me ask you just very briefly, Henna Hundal, when you hear Antonio Guterres' words, how do you grab people's attention? How, at each summit, we've already heard them from leaders like France's Emmanuel Macron, Britain's Rishi Sunak already. These calls to act now, these calls for urgency. What kind of language needs to be used?
Absolutely. Well, I think the language needs to be really focused on the present and not so much on the future, because oftentimes we'll frame climate change in terms of 2030 targets, 2050 targets, and that can be really difficult for the average person to grasp. When in reality, the average person can take a look around if, given the appropriate messaging, to see that the climate crisis is here and now. I mean, Kenya is experiencing its worst drought in 40 years. France 24 just did a piece on Rwandan tea leaf farmers who are being utterly devastated by having to increasingly go to higher ground to plant their crop. You look at the floods happening in Nigeria, even in the US, the Central Valley of California, which produces 8% of the US's agricultural output, is being devastated by lack of access to water. So really framing these issues in terms of the impacts that people are seeing, feeling, and experiencing right now is the type of messaging I think that we absolutely need going forward.
All right, look at the present, not the future. Let's look at the present in the host country. The scramble for limited resources includes, of course, renewables. Just ask natives of Egypt. They've seen wither the river that spawns many a civilization. Matthew Thompson has that story.